Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can confirm that the recording and the live stream is on. It is now 9 a.m. and you may begin.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. I see that we indeed have quorum, so I call this regular council meeting for Wednesday, September 18th, into session. And as is usually the case, we have a land recognition statement read at this time, and this week, Councilor Olson does the honors. Oh, sorry, go back one step. We forgot the national anthem. Yes, indeed. I ask all those that can please rise, and we'll have the national anthem. Great. Thank you for the reminder from the council. Also, it's nice to see that we have just recently reinstituted this custom at regional council, so it's great to see. Now, we will have Councilor Olson read the land recognition statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people.
Thank you, Councillor. Perhaps I do. With Council's indulgence, I'd just like to read this statement. We had a valued employee that reached retirement, and as mayor, I am very fortunate to meet and work. I had the pleasure of working alongside dedicated employees all the time, who in many cases are long-serving individuals in their careers in public service. Today, I'd like to take an opportunity to recognize an individual whose career spans approximately, we went down to days, 11,132 days in public service. If you're doing the math, that's 44 years. And the town of Pelham was lucky to have this individual spend the last 10 years serving the residents of our community. It is my pleasure to recognize Mr. Mike Zimmer as he approaches his upcoming retirement on September 31st. During the last 10 years, he has led Pelham's Building Services Division during a time when the town has experienced unprecedented growth and development, and from what I have been told, a contagious laugh and sense of humor, and I can attest to that in many occasions. On behalf of myself and council, thank you, Mr. Zimmer, for your continued service, and we wish you well on your well-deserved retirement. Thank you. And I believe there's 30 days in September. He got an extra day in his retirement. To Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the agenda for the September 18th, 2024 regular meeting of council be adopted as circulated. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. After viewing the agenda, is there any discussion? If not, I ask all those in favor. I see none opposed. To you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have so noted. We are on the disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof.
Thank you. After reviewing the agenda, does any council member have a pecuniary interest and general nature thereof to declare? Not seen any, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. That does bring us to our presentations, and we do have the Lincoln Pelham Library here with a presentation regarding some library renovations. Thank you.
Ladies, you have the floor, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having us this morning, Mayor Junkin, members of council, staff. Always nice to be here with you or on the screen with you. This morning, we're excited to talk a little bit about proposed improvements for the Fawn Hill branch. It's affectionately called the next chapter.
Nice.
So our new strategic plan has been launched. We came before you with that earlier this year. And we've set numerous goals as part of that plan. The renovation of the Fawn Hill branch addresses several of those strategic goals. Another of these is the accreditation of LPPL by the Ontario Public Libraries Accreditation Council. This honor was achieved recently, with the library scoring an average of 95% in all 121 categories examined. Those guidelines are important, not only for libraries pursuing accreditation, but as a process for boards, CEOs, councils, and library management to assess our governance model and our services against best practices in the province.
In 1853, the first library opened in Fawn Hill with a collection of only 165 books. It opened with the aim to provide mental, moral, and social improvement. During that first year, a director remarked, "One can scarcely calculate the benefit that will arise to the community." In the 1890s, a library was built on Canberra Road. By 1965, the Fawn Hill Library had moved to the ground floor of this building itself, the municipal offices. But as the community grew, so too did the need for a bigger library. Once again, Town Council voted to build a new library. The community stepped up in support of its much-loved library. In 1985, the Friends of the Fawn Hill Library hosted a backyard art sale to raise funds for the new build. By 1987, the tireless efforts of the Friends of the Fawn Hill Library and the Pelham Art Club, now known as the Pelham Art Association, formally established the Pelham Art Festival. On October 7th, 1987, Nellie McInnes, longtime library supporter and lifelong Fawn Hill resident, turned the first shovel of soil to break ground for the new build. On July 8th, 1988, Nellie, again at 97, cut the ribbon at the official opening of the new Pelham branch. Times have changed, and this slide quantitatively shows just how much the community values the Fawn Hill branch today. While these 2023 numbers are great, they are being substantially surpassed this year as more and more residents borrow materials, attend programs, and are engaged and supported by the library. Already this year, we have registered 385 new members at the Fawn Hill branch alone.
As you know, the Fawn Hill branch has some issues to address regarding accessibility, and those have been discussed here at Council on several occasions. These images serve to illustrate some of the challenges that we're facing. The branch is 2 floors, as you know. There's no elevator to make it accessible to all. The valuable square footage that we have in the lower level basement, it could be put to really good use for staff and storage and meeting space for the public even, with the addition of an elevator and the appropriate modifications. The branch does not have up-to-date facilities or a universal washroom. In addition to this, most shelving in the branch is not accessible according to provincial standards and has reached the end of life just due to its age and use. Staff have mitigated this by shelving items only on a portion of the shelving, as you can see in the images on the screen. In addition to these challenges, the branch has suffered numerous leaks this year, and the dampness currently makes the basement a difficult environment for storage or for staff use. Slide, please, Jody. The town secured the services of Ward 99 architects in late 2023, and work has been undertaken to address the current issues and to create more public space for library users in Fonthill. The new design will add approximately 3,000 square feet of public space to the main level by moving the staff workspace to a refurbished basement, which will bring the library closer to the Ontario Public Library guidelines that I mentioned earlier. The planned improvements to washrooms and the addition of elevator access to the basement will also address AODA compliance. And the public space gleaned on the main floor will help us accommodate residential growth. And now I would like to invite our architect, Tina Ranieri DeVideo. I see that she is available online to talk about the renovation of the main floor and the basement. So Tina, please take it from here.
For sure. Thank you, Julie. I have to apologize to the council. My video doesn't seem to be working today. We're having technical difficulties, but we're trying to fix that. I'll just ask the to maybe go to the next slide, to the floor plans, if that's okay. So I'm just going to go through what the project renovation entails. So the project involves a complete renovation of the ground and basement levels of the library to provide for more public space on the ground floor by relocating staff spaces to the renovated basement level. On the screen, you can see the proposed ground floor plan. And the intent is that the entire building includes for accessible spaces, as mentioned by Julie. And to do so, the project includes a small addition to the east side to provide for a new elevator to access a renovated basement level, where the intent is that staff is to be relocated. I'm just going to go through some of the main elements of the ground floor first. So looking at the ground floor, the main entrance to the north side, the northwest side, which is on your, can we go back to the previous? Thank you very much. So the main entrance, which you can see on the top left side, the intent is that the existing entrance would be renovated to provide for automatic sliding doors and a much larger and welcoming vestibule. That entrance flows into a main entry vestibule, similar to what is currently at the library. But this main foyer would be renovated to accommodate a new washroom block. The new washrooms would include 4 single-use washrooms, and most important, a new universal washroom, which would be the new accessible washroom, which you can see adjacent to the existing program space in pink. The existing program room would be renovated to provide for a larger program room with a folding partition, which would connect to a new maker space digital hub. And the folding partition between the 2 new program spaces would accommodate much larger events and would allow for use of larger programming spaces after hours. The after hours use would be accommodated by an additional folding partition, which would close off that foyer and washroom block and program space from the main library space. Now, the main library space that you can see in white to the right of the floor plan would become an open, completely open, accessible library space with the inclusion of the new elevator that you can see on the top right. This would accommodate the removal of the existing stairs that Julie was demonstrating in a previous photo. It would move the staff areas to the basement level and would allow for a complete, open, accessible library space. Included in that accessible library space would be a new service counter, which would accommodate sightlines throughout the new library. It would include for a new business hub, which you can see on the top of the floor plan, adjacent to the entry. It would accommodate new counter, computer, bring your own device spaces. It would include for new collaboration hubs. The intent is also to include for additional windows, enlarged windows, to allow for more natural light into that open public space. And the open public space would also accommodate a few new amenities, such as a glass enclosed teen hub, which you can see on the right side in pink, an adjacent glass enclosed quiet study, a revamped, more welcoming children's area to the south side, a much larger space for children's. And in addition, the open space would accommodate for new shelving, which would be accessible. If we move to the basement level, the next slide, thank you. Again, you can see the proposed new elevator addition to the top right. Now, the new elevator, again, would allow for staff to be relocated to the basement, which would accommodate the upgrades and accessibility to the public spaces on the ground floor. And it would allow for staff to have proper staff spaces. And some of these spaces include a new dedicated staff washroom, a new staff lounge, and new staff workspaces, as well as a new branch head office. And in addition, because the basement level would become an accessible space, the intent is also to include a new meeting room, which could be accessible by the public, while the basement can still be maintained as a secure basement level for staff. I'll hand it back over to Julie now.
Thank you very much, Tina. You can see why we're very excited with the prospect of what can be done at the Fawn Hill branch. Next slide, please, Jody. A Trillium Grant Fund grant for $200,000 has been secured, as you know, and we're so excited to be able to put that toward new shelving in the branch. That's very much needed. The estimated cost for that shelving is about $400,000, so that'll take care of half. The library, through judicious spending over the past few years, has amassed reserves of about $400,000, which will also be applied to this project. And there are several opportunities that are being explored for additional funds. The EAF grant application for $2.2 million, the GICB grant, that's Green and Inclusive Community Buildings grant, for just over $4 million, and the capital campaign is being prepared to launch. The library has employed Armstrong and Associates to undertake a planning study and a capital campaign, which is right now in the cultivation phase. Pelham residents, including Mayor Junkin and several councillors, took part in the interviews that helped inform that study. Slide, please, Jody. The Pelham community has long supported the library. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have been donated over the years by the Pelham Art Festival, Pelham Art Association, and the wonderful service clubs and individuals who have provided funds for the extras that help the library thrive. LPPL has already committed $50,000 to the planning study and capital campaign, and we hope to raise a substantial amount from our community to support this renovation. Several community volunteers are committed to helping us succeed. We have been working alongside Jason and Town of Pelham staff and with Ward 99 on the drawings, and we're excited at the prospect of getting started on the vital improvements that we've presented here today. We are all in. We are asking Council for financial support in the range of $1.5 million to help make the Fawn Hill branch an accessible, inclusive, and efficient community space befitting a model of shared services in Niagara region. With a commitment from this council, we can begin our capital campaign in earnest, and we can begin to plan a construction schedule. We thank you so much for your time and welcome any questions.
Thank you for a great presentation, and thank Tina for sharing the drawings. pretty exciting for sure. Before I open it to council, again, I'd like to thank you for giving Councilor Olson and I a tour almost a year ago now, I believe. And speaking of the basement space, I'm sure that somewhere in its past life it acted as a dungeon because it's pretty dark down there.
It is.
So it'll be nice to see that all that space down there is going to be brought into use. So it's great to see that. One question again, and either to you or to the architect, but I imagine you're very knowledgeable of these plans. With the restrictions, with the new laws, requirements of the shelving, when we're all said and done, will the shelving limits stay the same as in the new renovations as in the old? Because I know they got to lift the bottom shelving up and what have you. Could you go into that, please?
By that, I think you mean, will we have the same number of materials?
Yes.
That's our plan.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So through creative arrangement of that shelving, and different types of shelving,
Okay.
Your Honor, like, or Your Worship, I mean, just, we'll have different types of displays available and different heights of shelving, and it'll all be on wheels, so we can move it throughout the branch and make the space more flexible.
Excellent.
But our plan is to maintain current collection levels.
Okay, thank you very much. Members of council, questions or comments on the presentation? Councilor Nesnak.
You looked this side too quickly.
There we go.
I didn't put my hand up yet. I usually wait till you're looking that way.
Indeed, indeed.
Anyways, good morning. Thank you for your presentation. And certainly I am a member of the library board and have watched this develop as the last 2 years have been undergone. So just a couple of questions. With regards to that green and inclusive community buildings, I'm just wondering, are you accessing our grant writer to support that? And if so, that's a pretty tough grant to get. How is this building going to match or fit into that grant?
Through you, Mayor Duncan. So the town's grant writer is indeed working on the grant right now. And we are working with her so that we can make sure that we have all the information up to date that we need to have. There are new guidelines involved in that grant, and it is a tough one to get acknowledged. So the plan is, for $1.5 million to come from council, and if we are not successful in any of those grant rounds, that the capital campaign will be making up the difference.
Thank you. So if I've done my math correctly, we have approximately 20,000 people, residents in the town. I rounded it up to 20,000. I know it's not quite there, but it's close. And asking for a $2 million proposal. That comes out to $100 per person in the town. So certainly I don't think your ask from the town is unreasonable. I think if we are going out to do the capital campaign, I think one of their first questions is going to be, well, what is the town doing to support this project? So I do think it is imperative that we get behind the project and put some of our funds, our capital funds towards the buildings. So I guess just a question, I don't see our treasurer here today.
Councillor, so the CEO does indeed have a statement from the treasurer, if you'd like to hear that now.
Perfect. Maybe he can hone in on this conversation then, so thank you very much. But I'm certainly in support of putting some capital funds towards this, so I don't think your 1.5 is out of reach, and who knows, we might not even need that if we can get that capital campaign going full force and we get that other grant. Thank you.
Okay, so council, before we go further, I will ask CEO Mr. Cribbs, who is joining us from some obscure place in the big city. Mr. Cribbs, do you indeed have a statement from the treasurer on certain possibilities?
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Lovely. I'm joining you from a suburb of the greater Pelham known as Toronto. So I did speak with Ms. Quinlan Murphy, and what she informs me is that financially, assuming for every $1 million in debt, so assumed by the corporation for this project. It'll have a 0.5%, so a 0.5% impact on the tax levy. That's based on the notion of us paying 5% interest on monies borrowed and paying it back over a 15-year term, which results in an annual payment of $96,342. 1% of our tax levy for the budget you're about to start considering in about 6 weeks is 193,936. So call it 194,000 is 1% of the tax levy, anticipated tax levy, and so $1 million based on 5% interest and 15-year payments is 96,000, which is roughly half of 193 projected. So roughly 0.5% impact and annual impact on the tax levy for 15 years, assuming it was a $1 million donation. It goes up or down from there. Obviously, it scales.
Thank you, Mr. Cribbs. Stay tuned. We will now go back to Council Nesnick. You still have the floor.
Yes, so thank you very much. So just looking over those numbers, I'm not sure I understood it totally off of the first conversation, but 0.5 is a rather low impact, and I think our town is at the point where we do need to support it, and our residents are looking for accessible library spaces, and it is time that we moved into. This is a 40-year-old building, and I know we're looking at some other buildings and some other large projects going down the road too, but it is time to keep us moving in terms of the library, as it is an important space in our community.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments and questions? And I'll go to Deputy Mayor Council Wink.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to CAO. So just to clarify then, we would be having to debenture any costs towards the library, is that correct? So it'd have to go out and borrow money.
Mr. Cribbs?
Thank you, Your Worship. That is correct, Deputy Mayor Wink. We don't have, so there is $400,000 in the library reserve, and I think that was on an earlier slide. The library is anticipating using all of that towards this project. So those are the only monies the town has earmarked relative to any capital needs for the library. Accordingly, we don't have any dedicated reserves. If you wanted more information on how we could, well, all the other reserves are dedicated, but you could direct us to look at how we might change that. But at the moment, there are no other monies available, and so it would have to be borrowed from the markets. And we're assuming a 5% interest rate. Those are obviously in the process of coming down, and we wouldn't know the exact timing when the money would be needed. So it's possible that could be a lower number, but using 5% and 15 years as a payment, and that's the other thing council could consider 20 years or 10. I mean, that would have an impact on the cost, but 15 years at 5%, $1 million works out to $96,000 a year, which is anticipated to be 0.5% on the levy.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just to change course a little bit, the EAF grant, when is it anticipated that the announcements on that would be?
Back to you, Ms. Andrews.
Through you, Mayor Junkin. We expected to hear long before now, Councillor, to be honest. So it should be any minute now.
Okay, thank you. So that would give us a better sense on what's there and what's needed, because with all these numbers, they far exceed the required costs. So it would be nice to know how close we are, because if these grants don't get approved, like, you're way off of your $5 million target, at which time it's back to the drawing board. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And just to refresh Council's memory, today we will not be making any final decisions, so that'll be made at budget time. But the CAO has instructed that it would be nice if we did get a general idea on the flavor of this council for the either for the ask, or perhaps come up with a number that each individual would be happy with. So Councilor Nesnick weighed in at the $1 million, I believe.
1.5 is
One
good.
total, yes. Let's go to Councilor Kerr.
Yes, I guess trying to wear two hats. One is a commitment from every resident and working out the dollar value per resident. Then you turn around and go back to the same residents for a capital campaign. Some people may turn around, and significant people have a tendency to say, well, if I'm already paying this much of my taxes, why am I going to even add more to this at this point? So it's that double-edged sword. Sometimes the line is that the taxpayer and the resident are the same person. and getting them to buy in and make the commitment sometimes is and we've all heard this before. I'm already paying X amount for this. Why are you asking me for more? And the challenge comes from a number of people that maybe don't utilize the facilities. And when you add up the number of residents, you're including kids and everybody else into the equation. So a family, you're saying, okay, if it turns out to be at 1.5 million, turns out to be that much per person, but you say, I've got 5 people in my household, it's costing my household this much money on my taxes per se. So that's where the challenge comes in for me on this. I acknowledge that the town needs to support this. It's the amount that we're going to have the challenges with. I hate to sound like the Grinch, but again, with one taxpayer and a lot of requests for a lot of things, we have to sort of apportion the money over to a large number of projects. And that's really where I'm coming from. So I'm not, at this point, I'm not at the budgetary process will come through. I'm not at the 1.5 million personally at that point, just because of the way the numbers kind of run themselves through. And I hate to be blindsided by other things that suddenly appear, and 0.5% doesn't sound like a lot. It actually turned out to be 0.75% if you go to 1.5 million, because the 0.5% was based on 1 million. So now you're taking somebody and saying, okay, we're going from arbitrarily a 5.5% tax increase to 6.25%. And people have a tendency, especially with the regional stuff and everything, we're all antsy about. There's one pocket in the Niagara region that all of us pay into, whether it's a regional levy or this. So I'm supportive of it. I'm just having, like I say, it's at the budgetary point where I think that it's going to be easier to have a better stand. That's where I am right now. I just wanted to bring it up from that perspective.
No, I appreciate that, Councillor. Thank you for those comments. Councillor Olson.
Yes, yes, thank you, Mayor Duncan. And to the presenters from the library. You make a very compelling case, in my opinion, for the work that we want to do. That needs to be done, actually, because equity is important and accessibility has to stand at the top of equity. There can't be anything more important in the community that everybody has an opportunity to use the services that we have. I have a couple of questions, though, about the finances here. And first of all, that you've indicated, and we've talked in the past between us about the issues that we have with the basement and the building and this, I guess it's the status of the structure and the collections and the damage that's being done by the water and things. And this year, I think, was particularly bad, not just for this library, but for the other one as well, for Maple Acres as well. How much is included in the budget for correcting the problems with the basement?
Through you, Mayor Duncan, to the councillor. So it will be something that's in the next estimate.
Okay.
This is a Class D estimate that we're working with right now, so it's not to the level of mechanicals. So we will know a little bit more about that. But indeed, there will be some mitigation necessary to ensure that the basement stays dry.
Okay, but the mitigation is going to be done probably I guess separately can be done separately from the whole project, I guess, because it has to be done for the condition of the building and for the condition of the collection. And I'd ask Mr. Marr if there are any plans in place for those types of things.
To the Director of Public Works, Jason Marr.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as of right now, there's no specific capital projects to address issues in the basement of the library on its own. There's no standalone projects in the budget.
Okay, thank you. Counselor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could we get for the budget, and I may be asking the wrong person, but can we get an explanation of, and an amount of what this is going to take to fix the basements in both libraries at some point? That would be useful to me. So we're essentially adding 3,000 square feet to the existing library. What size of a population does that take us to? Does that take us to, based on square foot, one per square foot?
Through you, Mayor Junkin, to the councillor, so the guideline is 1 square foot per capita.
Yep.
So that'll certainly bring us closer.
How much do we have right now?
Well, in that branch, about 9, and in Maple Acre, about 4.
Yeah. Okay. Finally, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to make the comment that I've always been impressed by the management, the leadership that we have at the library. I've said that in the past. I'm glad we have this accreditation because I believe a great deal in third-party accreditations to tell you how well you're doing and operating, and these are very valuable. So I'd be in support of, I guess I'm going to say a reasonable number depending on the budget, but I'm not adverse to the $1.5 million. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Olson. Any other comments on the presentation? Back to Deputy Mayor Wink.
Yes, just to support some of the comments made, being an active library supporter now, and I'm in there once a week, it is very busy. Every time I walk in there, the library is full. I am supportive of a funding for the new library. I'm just not at a specific number at this point in time. I'd like to see further comments from our treasurer, see what the budget looks like and whatever. But yes, I will be in support of it. To what degree, I'm not ready to commit at this point in time.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I see Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for this excellent presentation. I also support the library and the process and the number of people who use it. I think the creative way that you've created library services for individuals is exceptional. A lot of my family use all your internet, ebook, and all that kind of stuff. And actually, the lending library you have at the Meridian Center, I'm hoping that gets expanded, because I think those are opportunities where the future generation will take advantage of a lot. And that's not to say we don't need these renovations. I'm in support of the renovations. I'm a big proponent of getting grants. I'm concerned about that green and inclusive community building grant, because I know that I've seen some of the technical requirements for that grant. And I certainly hope we're able to get that grant in on time, because the technical requirements for that are so detailed. It's tough. So I'm not sure, but obviously we need to have some grants to support no matter what, because if it's only the town putting in the money and the residents putting in the money, I think we got a difference between those. The number where we're going to be at, I'm not sure. I'm not prepared at this stage to say it's 1.5 or whatever it is. We know we have to come up with something, and what that something is, I can't say today. But in general, I'm supportive of we need to do something. But conversely, I also know we need to fix the buildings first. I mean, we need to have those repairs done, and if there's no capital money for that, I'm not sure how we're going to budget all that in our budget coming forward either. So those are my comments, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much again for an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Hildebrand. My 2 cents, number one, I go back to your presentation you made at the budget last year, and all these programs that you're running there, the innovation that you're putting into the system, as Councilor Hildebrand alluded to, it's a living, viable institution in the town, and I certainly support probably the higher end donation. Again, depending on what the budget is. This is a great union that we have between Pelham and Lincoln, and it's up to this council to make sure that we uphold our end of the bargain, for sure. The town is located within our town, or the building. So yeah, I'm, again, we'll see how the budget rolls, and the figures I heard from the CAO, I believe are doable. And yeah, well, other than that, I'm afraid that's what we'll leave it at today. But again, a great presentation. And again, I was in the library about 2 weeks ago, and Councilor Wink is right. There's a lot of life and a lot of stuff going on in that building. And obviously, the residents are using it on a daily basis for sure. So, any other comments or questions? I'll go back to Councilor Kerr.
Yes, I guess I want to indicate I'm supportive of it. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to say no to this. I'm very supportive of it. It's the economics, just as others have said, where we can kind of fit, as mentioned. The big challenge is the unknown of grant money. We have to look at every stone and every grant that's available for everything all along. And as I say, once we get into the budget process, I was unaware that there was no capital allocated for repairs, which adds another bit of a wrench to all of us. But, you know, some things, A, has to be done foundationally before B can proceed, I guess is the way we go. But I'm very supportive at what level we'll see collectively once we get there. So, again, the presentation was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nesnick?
Yes, thank you once again. So through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question for Julie. So with the project cost, all those leaking mitigations are built into that project renovation as well. So that would be part of this renovation, correct?
Through you, Mayor Junkin, they would have to be.
Yeah.
So if we have to forego some other element in order to make sure that those things are taken care of, then that's what will have to happen. I also just want to remind you with something that the CAO said earlier in his comments and the comments from the treasurer, and that was the capital funds can be redirected. So the capital funds that you have now and that you have earmarked for certain projects can in fact be redirected according to your will. Just wanted to remind you because he did say that. So I was just bringing that up again. Thank you.
That's
Thank
tricky.
you. Councilor?
Yes, and just a final comment. I don't go into the library very often, but I access their e-readers all the time. So, and I only started doing that about 3 years ago. Prior to that, though, I would purchase books. So I think I've saved myself about $250 to $300 a year. So if I put that money into your library renovation, there you go. So here we go. So that's another way of looking at it, as well as we will be reaching out for the capital campaign to corporations, not just our residents. We'll be reaching out to companies and corporations and those sorts of folks as well as our residents. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Not seeing any other comments. Again, we thank you for your presentation, and we look forward as this project continues to gain traction throughout the communities.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive the proposed library renovation presentation from the Lincoln Pelham Public Library for information. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any further discussion.
Thank you. Once more, any further discussion on the presentation? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion passes. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. 1, C14, 2024, regular council meeting, September 5th, September 4th, 2024. I would ask if there's any errors or omissions.
Okay, thank you. After viewing the minutes, is there any errors or omissions that any councillor member would like to speak to? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I just look for the vote.
Oh, sorry. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to the request to lift consent agenda items for separate consideration. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items be as listed on the September 18th, 2024 council agenda be received and the recommendations therein be the recommendations contained therein be approved. If there's any items that a councillor wishes to lift, now would be the time.
Okay, councillors, any item anyone would like to lift? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Then you may speak to the agenda items. Now would be the time.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And the article is 9.1.1, and my question is for Ms. Dusling about the information report on the planning statement from the province. And just reading through this and looking at what we can actually influence as a municipality. And it looks to me like it's a lot of words that force us into different things that we have to think about, like the environment and things. But I was really wondering about there's always that boilerplate statement at the front that our residents rely a lot upon, and that is we want to maintain the character of the town. And that seems to be in every planning document that I see. And then when it comes up to consideration by a third party, that seems to be the last thing that's considered. So first thing for the residents, first things for council, the last thing for the land tribunal when it comes to that, it seems to be. So is there any possibility that those kind of things can be strengthened in this document at all?
To the Director of Planning, Ms. Dusling.
Yes, thank you through the mayor to Councillor Olson. Good statement and good question. I think the town of Pelham is in a good position with the new PPS coming out and the combination of the growth plan in the PPS document, because we are in the process, as per the next report, of taking forward our official plan. So that allows us to put a town of Pelham flavor on some of these new PPS policies. So, in terms of the environment or urban expansion boundaries, those sorts of things, our new OPP, or our new OP is the place where we can put that flavor on just the town of Pelham policies and implementation.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mayor. And a further question. It says in there, talks about building standards. To what extent can we apply building standards? And I'm thinking particularly about low-impact development features, and in particular probably to control flooding and stormwater.
To the Director.
Through you, the mayor, again to Councillor, another great question. Again, the overarching policies in the PPS will dwindle down into our new town of Pelham official plan, which can then be implemented in the zoning bylaw. And at the same time, you will see in the next few months and next year a lot of changes in the Ontario Building Code, which will really start to implement some of those environmental concerns, climate change, those sorts of things.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And finally, you've answered part of my question, which was going to be the Ontario Building Code, when that changes. And when is those changes expected? Do you know that?
Through you, the mayor to Councillor, I don't know the exact date, but I can check with our CBO, acting CBO, and get that information to you. I know it's within the next few months or early in 2025.
Thank you both. I look forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other items before, if we go down the list, I have 9.1.2, Town of Pelham new official plan, to the Director. So, yeah, if you could give us a general synopsis of the status update and what are the next steps.
In terms of the new provincial policies or planning statement,
Yes.
it comes into effect October 20th. And for us, there are no imminent changes that we need to make because they are overarching policies, but we will be including them in our new official plan that's coming forward later this year and early in 2025.
So, as we have discussed, I believe it's in the official plan, the greenhouse growers in Pelham want to go from the 33, I think it's 33.5, and they want that raised considerably. So when will that happen?
Through you to the mayor, that will be part of our official plan update. So the next report on the agenda speaks to that timeline. We're hoping to roll out draft policies in October and get community consultation in November and come back to council for a statutory public meeting and approval early in 2025.
So then if any member of this council or members of the public wanted to make further changes, and the one that that I really want to also see put in this is that when we do secondary developments in this town, we do not allow them to put basements under it. And meanwhile, we have neighbors that when they do secondary developments, their reasoning is a basement does not add to the footprint, so why wouldn't you add a basement? So any comments on something like that?
Through you, the mayor. So again, those are comments that we would take from the public or council during your review of the new official plan through the policy regime. But it sounds like other than definitions, the implementation of that would be further into the zoning bylaw.
Okay, beauty. Thank you for those comments. Again, council, any other questions on any of the consent agenda? And I don't know if I'm done yet. Yes, I am. I'm done. Any other one? No? Okay, I guess back to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The motion's on the floor, and I'm looking for the vote.
Oh, so all those in favor? See none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to your first staff report. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2024-0199 Development Agreement Security Deposit Policy Report for information, and that Council approve policy number S300-04, the Development Agreement Security Deposit Policy. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
And again, before I go to council, perhaps I will go to our legal, Ms. Sturton. So in drawing up this this agreement, maybe you could go into the steps. Did we follow our neighbors or established security agreements in other areas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, the security agreement policy that has been drafted and for Council's consideration today does model those of Niagara Falls and other municipalities locally that do allow this sort of agreement to exist, as well as supplemented by my own research and to make it a little more Pelhamized.
Excellent. And obviously, you're putting this forward to council, so you're more than happy that the risk to the town is still very manageable.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, the safeguards that have put in place in the draft policy are intended to do exactly that. So it may very well be that not too many surety bond providers are going to be interested in meeting those conditions, but they are certainly necessary from my perspective to protect the town. And that's the irrevocable nature of the surety bond and certain credit ratings and all the things that will address the potential risks that were described in the previous report.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you for that. To council, any comments or questions? Council Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, here are my comments with regards to security bonds versus lines of credits. First of all, the information you've provided us is exceptional, but the areas that accept security bonds are Hamilton, Weldon, Niagara Falls, confirmed. It was advised that Haldimand County, Brantford, and Thorold may be doing it. So to me, we're talking about larger municipalities with larger financial capacity to absorb the impact and issues regarding security bonds. The issue I have with security bonds is it's a complex filing process. It's time-consuming, administrative, burdensome for municipalities who face challenges with developers' noncompliance on default or on the bond issue. So for me to approve this right now, to say, yes, I'm not there, would I approve a trial? Yes, I would approve a trial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor. Any other I see Councillor Nesnick.
Thank you. Just a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Sturton. So in history of the town of Pelham, have we had, what have been the approximate number of cases that have defaulted in our town, if you know?
To Ms. Sturton.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Niznik, I don't know the precise numbers. I do know that in the public works context, we have accepted surety bonds, and very rarely have they been called on, if at all. Mr. Marr could perhaps comment on that. And then in the planning and building context, my understanding is that although we have not previously permitted surety bonds, the letters of credit and other forms of security have very rarely been called upon as well. I don't know if Dr. Dusling has comment on that.
To the Director of Planning, perhaps.
Through the mayor, I think those comments are absolutely correct, and I would just add that frequently in the industry, we get a lot of questions about the opportunity for surety bonds.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go to Director of Public Works. Any comments on the subject?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So in my time here at Pelham, we have not had the unfortunate experience of having to call a bond. In fact, in my whole career, I've never done so. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It is interesting to note these are indeed going to be trying times coming up. And I was reading one article that in the city of Toronto, in the last 6 months, they had 23 developers that went bankrupt and got bought out by bigger corporations, so bigger developers. But we had a developer in yesterday talking to myself and the Director of Planning and Director of Public Works. And yeah, there is indeed tough times. So coming for them, interest rates are coming down. So there's optimism there. I guess I will trust the legal department that if you are assuring us that the town continues to be protected, then I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comments? Not seeing any. To the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd be just looking for the vote.
Okay. Could you read the
Certainly.
the motion?
Sure, certainly. The motion is, be it resolved that council receive report 2024-0199 Development Agreement Security Deposit Policy Report for information, and that council approves policy number S300-04, the Development Agreement Security Deposit Policy. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? So I'll call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? See, Councilor Hildebrand is opposed. Motion passes. Thank you. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be it resolved that council receive report 2024-0190, Fire Station Number 1 Architectural Design Project for information, and that council directs staff to move forward with the capital project FAC 0324 Fire Station Number 1 Architectural Design, and that the design be completed as a standalone rebuild of the facility on the existing property, 177 Regional Road 20 West, to accommodate a phased construction approach. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, thank you. So, Council, this is, of course, the proposed refurbishing of Fire Station Number 1 at its location. Any comments or questions on the report? Councilor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question's for the chief. I'm a believer in big houses and small offices, so do we have enough office space in this building to cover all the people that are going to be there? Because I see there's the expansion option of just expanding the office part of it seems to be, from my reading of it, is one of the things that can be expanded, as well as some of the parking could be. Could we utilize more of the space for offices, and more particularly for, I would say, comfort for the firefighters and meeting rooms and that types of things?
To the fire chief, Limburner.
Through Mr. Mayor, the current location is approximately 8,300 square feet, and the proposed new design is somewhere near 13,000 square feet. And we've added a number of additional offices for the current staff and for future staff. So will definitely be expanded space will accommodate future, current and future needs.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you, Chief. I just want to make sure that we're going to be putting up a structure like that, and it says it's 13,519 is what the number is on the design. You know, another few spaces are available there, I think, for expansion, but I don't want to put something under a roof and then have to put another roof on it later on. So I just want to make sure we've got the space we need and what's required, because I think you're going to see more needs for the health and safety of our firefighters. I want to make sure that those kind of things are included in the building if we can at least predict something for them. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Olson. Any other comments, questions on the report? Yep. Councillor Nesbitt.
Sorry, thank you. So just to clarify, a question for you, I guess, Mr. Mayor. Are we choosing one of the options or just not today?
No, I don't believe so. We're just accepting the report as a whole.
Okay, so just to move forward with the rebuild. So just, I guess, a question moving forward for our chief. One design has a bay for 5 trucks, which I believe we have right now, 5 trucks, or space for 5, right?
To the chief.
And then the option C shows one for 7. So just wondering if the option C, which has 7, is that overkill, or is that going to meet our needs moving forward in the future nicely?
To the
Maybe
fire
this
chief?
isn't the time for the question, I'm not sure, but thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, the plan that we are comfortable with is the 5-bay. We currently have 4 frontline response vehicles. It leaves us an extra bay, which I currently use. But if we ever were to expand add another vehicle, then that 5th bay would accommodate that truck. So, and if I could just make a further comment about the whole thing. So, the 13,500 square feet. We know the outside design, the box, as you call it. We're pretty comfortable with that design. The actual interior part, we're going to engage quite a number of people, accessibility people, engineers, public works staff, so forth. So the actual interior part of the station is kind of still out there for comment and input from a number of different, it's just the outside footprint that is what we're comfortable with.
Councillor? Oh, you good? Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This isn't necessarily with regards to the footprint or the design of that, but it has to do with a comment with regards to the area that I think the architects miss or hardly get a passing grade on. And that has to do with the HVAC and BAS systems that they design. When you look at the MCC and the Town Hall addition, this area was the area that was what I consider a near disaster. We spent over a year, probably more than a year, with the HVAC and the BAS system at the Meridian Center, trying to get it to function properly and operate properly. And I'm not sure who the architects used to design these systems, but it's frequently a problem. And let me give you an exact example of this place right here. We put this building on. It has 217 square meters, 230, which is just over the house size of 235 square feet, which is a large house. Let me tell you what the designers put in this building. We have 5 indoor VRFs, 1 outdoor VFF, 3 exhaust fans, big exhaust fans, 3 RVs, energy recovery units, 2 electric duct heaters, 7 forced fan heaters. And you ask why you have to have dehumidifiers in a couple of offices to keep the envelopes from sealing shut, and why you got trouble. You go in one meeting room and it's cold, you walk in the hall, the heater's running. With all these units in such a small area, you'll never get a BAS system to work properly. So I think professionally, we better get a professional engineer who's got an HVAC license to deal with a fire hall HVAC BAS system, period. Because both these buildings, brand new, done by architects, to me, they don't get a passing grade on HVAC and BAS, period. My comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe this one I'll go to the CAO. Mr. Kibbs, you've heard the councilor's comments. Can we put that in as staff direction, or what are your comments on that?
I'm going to use this opportunity to punt and turn it over to Mr. Marr. Look, my understanding of the process here really mirrors what the Chief Limburner had to say, which is that we now know where we'd like to rebuild in the existing location, and that's something the architects and whether it's an architecture firm, they'll have to consult engineers, or an engineering firm, they'll have to use architects. The two go hand in glove, is my understanding. But we don't have to know exactly the interior configuration at this time. That's the thing we work out through this process. I'd certainly like to defer to Mr. Marr, but I think that's coming no matter what, and that the various companies that will want to build to bid will necessarily have to be able to access both professions to do so properly. That's what I think. So I'll defer to Mr. Marr, who I assume is just out of my sight, but there somewhere.
Yes, he is, and I will indeed ask Mr. Marr that same question.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the benefit we have here, we've decided that we're going to build a new fire hall. So it's going to be a completely new building. How we get there, we're going to look at using a staged approach to have the new building, but we will issue the RFP. We will have considerations in that RFP for green energy solutions, and that'll be part of the architect's responsibilities to look into those different options for us. They will have qualified engineers on their team that will look into designing the HVAC components of the system of the building. So it's definitely something we're going to look at as part of the design process. And like I said, we'll look for opportunities to build efficient buildings where we can, and we'll report back to council on those costs and what the plan is during the design phase.
Okay, thank you. Councilor, is that somewhat reassuring to you?
To be honest with you, no. I worked with architects a lot in my life.
Okay.
And they have a totally different view of life than an engineer does. And by the time we had the town hall building for this place, and I saw the drawings, all this stuff that I mentioned was in there. I can't believe how complex. You'd never put that in your house. If you had a 2,000 square foot house, you'd never put all that stuff in one house and try and control it, because and the MCC was no different. When you look at the MCC and all the design and all the stuff we had to shut off and all the stuff that staff did, that's two architects, and to me, they had two failures in the HVAC BAS design. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll take those comments into consideration. They tell me that the architects of today are better educated, so hopefully we'll see that.
I'm not sure that that's good.
Back to the Director of Public Works.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to qualify the statements I made, the architects will hire professional engineers. They will not be designing the HVAC systems. They will have on their team professional engineers that will do that work for them as part of their assignment. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And again, as you mentioned just now, when they have the options of different green items, that will be coming back to council to make those decisions. Correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we'll look at green energy efficiencies and options for that building. Again, it comes down to a cost and a benefit, and we'll evaluate those as part of the RFP for the design.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Any other questions on this report? If not, all those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, okay. Unanimous, the motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2024-0205, Public Works Hayes Street Traffic Calming Pilot Update for information, and that Council direct staff to install permanent speed cushions on Hayes Street north of Brewerton, and that Council direct staff to propose a budget adequate for the provisions of traffic calming measures in the 2025 Capital Roads budget. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on this report? Councilor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment. The evidence is not compelling to me. I think with the start, where we started off, then we had the speeds picked up, and then we put the speed bumps in, and it appears to me that, that we're claiming that the speed went down because of them. Once again, I think we're looking at the people who are inconvenienced the most, will suffer the most from this. The people that are going the speed limit are the bulk of the people in the community. And, we're making exceptions and putting in speed bumps just for the people that don't want to obey speed limits and probably won't be on the speed bump area anyway. They'll pick up speed when they go in between the speed bumps. So I'm not convinced that speed bumps are the answer to anything, and I certainly don't think they're the answer in any kind of an agricultural context because of the size and speed of the machines. I mean, farmers just can't go fast on the roads. They just they're probably under the speed limit more than anybody else, but they also got the biggest, well, there are exceptions, Chief, I think, but they are driving machines that don't, they're trying to maneuver between mailboxes and fence posts and all kinds of things, and now we're going to add something like this to it. So I will not be voting in favor of this for that reason.
Okay, thank you. I do know that I do get, well, number one, on Hayes Street, I travel that road just about every morning when I go up to Tim Hortons and get my coffee. And you definitely have to slow down for them because if you don't, you're going to rattle the heck out of your car. I guess my question, if I may, I always wondered, and I mentioned this to the CAO, that as I slow down and speed up and then slow down and speed up again, that have we heard any the residents right there, have they complained or maybe even obviously they haven't, I'm sure it would have been in the report. I'm surprised that they are happy hearing, well, not happy, hearing the cars slow down and speed up and slow down and speed up, as opposed to before they were there, the car just went by their place without the change in speed. But when you think about it, I guess if the cars are going down at a great speed, then perhaps you do get to live with the variations of the car slowing down and speeding up. So my question to Public Works: have we heard from any of the residents in the direct area where the speed bumps are on Hayes Street? Have we heard it all from? And I'll go to Ryan Cook.
Yeah, through the mayor, I have not received any complaints about the speed humps on Hay Street or the speed cushions that we installed the pilot area. I heard some complaints about the speed cushions from people that use Hay Street quite a bit, complaining that they had to slow down. I did speak to one resident directly in front of the speed cushion, and they are very happy with the reduction in speed in front of their house.
Okay, thank you. And over to the fire chief, if I may. I know that the speed bumps that have been involved in the on Hay Street, south of Highway 20. I thought maybe that we weren't going to put any more in because of the effect they have on emergency vehicles trying to get to a resident having to contend with those. Or if we do indeed continue on with these speed bumps, what's your reaction on that from the fire department?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first, I'd like to concur on the comment about getting behind a farm vehicle, because I did last week behind you, and it did take me quite a while to get down Effingham, but
I apologize.
So the new speed cushions on North Haste can be configured that emergency vehicles are large enough that can straddle them, so a car or pickup or whatever can't straddle them, so they have to go over them. So they work very well on the emergency side of things.
Okay.
The ones in the south, the problems we have with them is that we can't straddle anything, and they're such a way that when we go over them, and we have to go over them slowly, but when we do, all the weight of the truck goes up and the way the truck comes down, and we're constantly repairing our fire vehicles because of those humps. So totally different configuration. But the new ones, they can be put in such a way that we can straddle them.
Excellent, okay, so yeah, so that's the big difference then, obviously. You're straddling the one, and the other ones you do have to slow down and go over. Okay, excellent. Any other, I know that, and Ryan, you've talked to the gentleman, more than one person over on Pancake Lane. I know that they're eagerly awaiting the decision of council to see if they are indeed going to be put on that road. But from what I see, and I don't like speed bumps any more than the rest for anybody else, but if they are indeed slowing the traffic down, and they have to, because believe me, you can't go over them at a silly speed. Myself, I would be for the purchasing of other items like this. Again, any other member of council? I'll go to Deputy Mayor Wink, please.
So just a comment, not directed to anyone in particular, but the most complaints we get is in this town is speeding.
Yep.
And these speed bumps have reduced the average, not the 15 percentile, average by 24 kilometers per hour to go over those speed bumps, which is significant. Councillor Eckert, he's not here, but made a comment to me last week that the regional police put a speed trap on Pancake Lane, and one individual got a ticket for 105 kilometers in a 50. Speeding is ridiculous in this town, as in any other town. And anything we can do to reduce the speeds, it's important. People are in such a hurry to get from point A to point B. If they would just leave their house 5 minutes earlier, we wouldn't have these issues. But the overriding factor is the safety of our kids. If a ball goes rolling out on a street and someone's doing 105, that child does not have a chance. So I'm fully in support of this. If we can, when we do put in speed bumps, if we can design them differently, as the chief had said, to accommodate large equipment, that's great. The ones on Haste, yes, I understand that that they're not set up properly for large equipment, but I live on Haste, and people still drive quickly from one speed hump to the next. So even yesterday, I was cutting the grass along the boulevard, and some guy in a pickup truck had to be doing 70. So anything we can do to slow people down, I'm all for it.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I'll go to Councilor Kerr.
Yes, kind of supporting what Deputy Mayor Wink has said and others. We'll never stop everybody. I mean, it's a dream to have, but we need to think about the majority versus the minority. There will always be a reckless, and I will call it reckless driver, that we could put in a 16-inch speed bump and they're still going to jump it, driving like a, I won't even say, because that's really not parliamentary language that should be allowed. However, I think what we've got in front of us is fairly compelling. The information's there. It's shown that it's been effective. I think we all know of different streets in this municipality that would benefit from these. The pilot project did exactly what it was supposed to do. It gave us information. It's come back with some data for us. It's given us something to make a decision upon. Personally, I always work from dealing from data rather than straight intuition, because data will hold up more in court than intuition ever will. So I'm in support of this. I think it's something that we can look at. Opportunities are there at the design relative to dealing with emergency services and other ones so that those vehicles are not impacted negatively is a real positive out of this. And when I saw the comment there about Pancake Lane, yes, I'm one of these people who, all of us, I think, we know the circles around some places where you need to avoid some stuff, and unfortunately, Pancake Lake is one where you can get from Effingham Street suddenly up very quickly without having to deal with Canberra Road. And we're getting comments, and it's not relative to this, but I've been getting emails and others about problems on Foss Road and Sumler Road of really excessive speeding. We also saw a couple accidents at Victoria Avenue and Foss Road, serious accidents that were evident from missing stop signs. We'll never stop everyone, but I think that we need to go forward with this and look at this as developing a systematic plan over time of utilizing something that's proving to be effective. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. To Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council for the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. 1/57/2024, being a bylaw to appoint Andrew McMurtry as Chief Building Official, Bylaw Officer, and Property Standards Officer for the Corporation of the Town of Pelham. 2/58/2024, being a bylaw to appoint Jason Marr as a Drainage Superintendent for the Corporation of the Town of Pelham. 3/59/2024, being a bylaw to exempt blocks 139 and 152, 59M 505, municipally known as 72 and 74 Acadia Road, and 67 and 69 Marie Street from part lot control, Saffron Meadows, Phase 3, file number PLC 05/2024. 4/60/2024, being a bylaw to accept a 1-foot reserve, being parts 2 and 4, Plan 59R 18135, part of Block 180, Registered Plan 59M 505, pursuant to the subdivision agreement for Phase 3 of Saffron Meadows. Subdivision file number 26T1902-2018. 5/61/2024, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 13/2023, confirming various appointments to advisory committees for the Town of Pelham for the 2022 to 2026 term of council, and to appoint and remove members to the Pelham Cultural Advisory Committee, and to remove members from the Pelham Finance and Audit Committee. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, thank you. Before I open it to council, a question to to our Public Works Director, Mr. Marr, and I'm not trying to be smart here. I'm just, it's an honest question. Did you have to take any additional courses to prepare yourself to be the drainage superintendent?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes. You're required to take the drainage superintendent's course in order to be eligible for the grants provided through the ministry. So that has been, I completed those successfully last winter. And then having previous survey experience, and then have the being appointed by council gives you the ability to be in that position.
Excellent, very good, thank you. Any other questions from council on these bylaws? Not seeing any, call the vote, all those in favor? I see none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to motions and notices of motion, and we do have a notice of motion from Councillor Olson regarding the specifications of design and building projects.
To the councillor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be bringing a motion at the next meeting to require and specify the design and build for projects under $500,000. And Councillor Hildebrand has agreed to second it, and we will be working with the clerk to come up with the motion for the next meeting.
Yes, and indeed, and of course, at that time, you'll be filling in more details.
Yes, it will, yes.
Thank you for that. To the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I do have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and do pass, being a bylaw number 62-2024 to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of council of the town of Pelham at its regular meeting held on the 18th day of September 2024. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Niznik. Be it resolved that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for September 18th, 2024 at 9 a.m.
Thank you. And before I do indeed adjourn this meeting, I would just like to point out that it's our CAO's, Mr. Cribb's 29th birthday today. Sir, happy birthday. And may you have a good day.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. You're a little bit bad at math, but I love the sincerity.
Okay, have a great trip on your for the next couple of days. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'll call the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. None. Motion carries. I now adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.